So here, here's I'm to the director of the Tonopah Museum. This man named Joe Pomykata. He was the engineer that Wright-Patterson hired basically before the war to design the GB-4 weapon and take the weapon to Europe to fly it against enemy targets. And he was there, first-hand account. And here's a little piece of his interview. How did you come up with your idea for developing the GB-4, and how did you get it implemented?
Well, the Air Force wanted a radio television control bomb, and we started out the aircraft lab at Wright Field coming up with a design, but it turned out that there was not enough space in the fuselage to carry any radio control or TV receiver or camera and so on. So I came up with the idea of a GB-4 with a fuselage that I came up with the original, with the design, which I took to Tim Aircraft, and they did the detailed engineering, and they did all of the production drawings and so on for us. And then we took that to the furniture factory in Vernon, California, the Klassen Company, and produced the airframe.
How did you come up with the design concept for the airframe and the fuselage to make it?
Well, from my experience working for the aircraft industry before I went on active duty, I knew that we should use something that was shaped by using thin layers of wood molded over a form and so on, so we could have a stressed skin type of airframe.
Now, on your Eglin tests, those were conducted out in the ocean at targets?
No,
they weren't?
That was overland.
Overland, okay.
Yeah, they had some bombing ranges or whatever. They're in the middle of this. They would have a wooden pyramid, and that was the target that they used for their own tests.
Oh, for the GB-4.
So we used the same thing for the GB-4. And of course we had trouble developing the flight control system, the gyro system and so on. And we went through a learning process where we had cross controls. We'd call for down control, nose down, and then the thing wouldn't respond to an up control. It wouldn't respond right away. So we had a case there where we dropped the thing we dropped them from a B-23, and we gave it a down command, and boy, it just nosed over, going straight down. So pulling back, get it back up. Well, it finally responded to that and just turned and came right straight up and up in front of the airplane and then leveled up and came back down, just right in front of the nose, you know. And it amazed me that it, you know, reached a higher altitude than the one at which it was released. But of course, then you know, you had in dropping the bomb, you had imparted some energy to it there that it had, which it then picked up on the way back. Then we finally got it back down and down again. So we went through that kind of thing. When we finally discovered what was wrong in our control system, we had that ironed out. Then we continued with our tests. And one test, General Arnold wanted to see a demonstration, so he came out and, and they scheduled a thing for, I think around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. Anyway, so Colonel Holland said, oh, you know, get everything ready, get up in the air and be ready. So we got up there at the scheduled time, and he was supposed to come out to the range and witness this. And we flew around and around and around, and he wasn't showing up. They were having lunch down there, and they had just had a long lunch. When they finally came out, we'd been up in the air for about over 3 hours, I guess. So when they finally, the party, you know, parked at the edge of the range there to watch this thing, and we let it go, and we flew right over the top of General Arnold's party, and it's just beyond the pyramid. But he didn't realize how close he came to being hit.
How about Lauren Hammond of Hammond Organ Works fame? His participation in what his company was manufacturing during the war years, and he came out one time for the actual drop tests. What can you tell me about that?
Well, he used to come out. He worked very closely with us, and he's the one that developed the gyro control, and then also the radio control box. You see, we used there was the BC series of
command sets.
Yeah. And we used that to get the radio transmission. But then we had to feed that into a box that would turn that into the commands for the airfoil surfaces, the rudder and the elevator. And Hammond developed that part of the system, the box that take these signals and feed the instructions out of the servo units that operated the control surfaces.
So when you were flown out to England, I understand that you were kept in isolation from the rest of, the groups on the base as more of a...
Well, we were assigned to this auxiliary field, first field, and the only people that were there were our project and the Aphrodite and the Navy, Joe Kennedy.
Your first mission from England was, can you describe the mission, that the first one you went on, and what the problems and issues you ran into when you did it from England?
First mission?
Yeah.
Well, the first mission was against these E-boat pins at Le Havre. And, of course, the television reception in the airplane was almost nil, so we just lost 2 bombs there. The first one, we didn't see where it went. I mean, we didn't get any pictures back. The second one was intermittent, but what we got was after the bomb had passed over the target and so on and crashed on the beach.
The television failed, but how about the guidance and the rest of the functionality of the bomb? Did it meet up to your expectations?
Well, you couldn't really tell if you didn't have the television. You
couldn't see.
Have anything to do. And so now the observation airplane that came along and their TV reception was good. They got pictures back from the bomb, but of course they couldn't do anything. They had no controls. So the problem was in the planes that we had. Anything like loose washers rattling around or would cause interference and ruin our reception.
How much time elapsed before the second mission, and what was the second mission that you went on?
Well, you have to look at my diary to see how much time elapsed. I don't really remember because there were delays and so on. And the second mission was the mission against the sub-pins at La Palisse and La Rochelle, France, which was way around the end. And was there again we carried 2 bombs and we had the same problems. Well, I think one of them, the shutter didn't open, the first bomb. I may be wrong, but I think that's what happened. Anyway, we didn't know where that bomb went, we couldn't control it. The second bomb, now one problem was we could, with 2 bombs, we could only get 17,000 feet in altitude. The plane just couldn't get us any higher. So anyway, the second bomb, we would get these intermittent pictures, and most of the time we had no picture. And finally, when it passed over the coast, over the sub-pins, the picture we received was transmitted after the bomb had passed over the coast. So it came out, it was over the, I don't know which city it was, whether La Palisse or La Rochelle, but one of the 2, and we were right over the city. And so there was no target of opportunity. There was this city, and so I could see that there was this open area, it must have been town center, and so I just nosed the bomb over and bring it right straight down without going out in the more populated area. And so the last thing I saw was this scene rotating as the bomb was spinning and going down.
So you basically made a conscious decision that you didn't want to have the bomb drop on civilians.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to, but it was the lesser of 2 evils. Do you hit a congested part of the city or something that's open? You don't have much time to really decide. So afterwards, we only carried 1 bomb so that we could get more altitude. Plus the fact we only had 3 bombs left.
Third mission with 1 bomb, what was that target?
That was the target during that was a transformer switching station in the steel plant at Durin. And that was where we ran into clouds again, but we dropped And when he came out of the clouds, we had gone over the town of Durham, and the only thing was open countryside with a big building on the left side of the road that was. And as I got nearer, it looked to me like it was maybe a big school building or something, so I had enough time to get off of it and brought the bomb over, and the only other thing in sight used as a target was this big tree, like a big oak tree. And that's when I said, all right, fellas, just to show you I can hit something, I'm going to hit that tree. And that's what I did.
And you hit the tree.
Right at the base of the tree.
On your two B-17s you were assigned, your team, now you had them for the test drops at Tonopah, then you went over to Ferrisfield, and you lost one of the B-17s. Can you tell me something about how that took place?
Well, we had the two B-17s at the first field there, and there was a crew from the base of Nadishaw, and for some reason they, I think, took that B-7, borrowed that B-17 to get back to the base or something. Anyway, I don't remember exactly why they were taking it, but they flew it back to Nadishaw, and as they were coming in for a landing, the prop came off.
Oh, wow.
One of the engines, and crashed through the airframe, the cabin, cut control cables and all that sort of thing, and of course the plane crashed, hit the, ran into some other, I think another airplane on a flight line, and also trucks and vehicles. And I don't remember just exactly how it got out, but there was one member in the back of the plane. He didn't make it, so he was lost, and then of course a few people on the ground were also.
Then you were down to one B-17 then.
Yeah, so that we were left with the one B-17.
So other than the skillful aiming of you hitting a tree, sounds like no combat success yet.
No, really no success at all. I guess the last mission, and I hit a church, and I did some, had controlled response there. I could have gone in right in the front door, but I tried to skip over and I didn't quite make it.
On the last mission, after you expended all your bombs, that
Well, we had one bomb left, but the weather just grew progressively worse. We had we couldn't, I think for about a week or so we tried to get another mission, but couldn't because of the weather. And then, so then we had orders to come back to right field and leave that bomb and the I don't know, 6 or 8 GB8s for the English. Well, what I was learning was that we were still having a lot of trouble with the TV in the airplane. And actually we were ordered out of Tonopah before we really had all the problems solved in the reception of the TV signal in the airplane.
It was, as you can see, you're it. As you can see, a unique man that was the designer, flew the missions himself personally, and had a conscience not to hit civilians.
This isn't really known that much. I think of
It's-
this type of thing in the
As
first
it-
Gulf War, that's when we saw it on TV. I don't recall anything
Exactly.
in Vietnam that
It's,
really-
I mean, you certainly know about it today with Predator and the UAVs, and it's certainly it's a common thing, unmanned aircraft, a common thing today. But it's no one ever talks about the where it started and the greatest people that were. I mean, like I said, the engineer that goes out, that designs the plane on the base there, is actually going on to missions and flying his weapon. Could have been killed. I mean, just in enemy territory. So and they didn't have much success. They were still learning. They were rushed, like you say. Tonopah was the base where they did all their testing, before they were shipped out and to the theater, and they didn't have the bugs worked out. They said, "Let's go." Time's ticking, and then all this rushing and development things were happening in a very fast pace and developing and and they just couldn't get it all worked out all in time.
It seems like the Axis just used it. You just mentioned the tank that they had. Was there any other?
Well, certainly. I mean, that was the Germans. The Germans also had TV-guided missiles themselves. They had fly-by-wire missiles. They had before the Americans. There were a lot of it was used in reconnaissance. They used the television for reconnaissance, but the actual missiles that were probably more of the Americans than anyone else, that were just gave it to every one of these divisions, Army, Navy, Air Force, and, the research divisions. Okay, what can we do with this? Try it out. Try different concepts. Try, see what works and learn from it.
Yeah, that's really
Learn from it and see, and in the end, I think that they all somewhat learned, and that it didn't work very well. It's a difficult thing to control something two-dimensionally and not have the scope of what you're.
time delay also.
Time delay, there's reaction time, it's slow technology, it reacted very slowly, it was in its infancy. It's like cars in its infancy, it's a technology. The convenience we have today was not the way it was 80 years ago. But it was a learning experience and evolution of time. So now, obviously, when they fly out the Predators and UAVs, I think they're doing it from Las Vegas, Nevada. They're flying it out, and that's where they're going into Iraq, and they're thousands of miles away. They don't even see their, GPS and television and radar. They're using multiples of technologies to kind of make it, and obviously the success rate is fairly good.
Yeah, they have that count there for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, so first real success seemed to be the Gulf War. Is that right, or was it?
They started using the Vietnam a little bit. They used it in the Gulf War with started using TV-guided missiles in the war, because you can see enough footage of them being used. But it was again it's a point. They used it as a point of information. They didn't use it as a sole source of a sole source of guidance. You know, they had other means of guiding these weapons. They were trying to use it as a sole source of guidance, of, you know, dropping it and then guiding it to the target. And the Navy guys said, we didn't trust it, we're using radar too. And the radar actually, you know, the radar and the TV guys sat side by side and ended up, even talking to Jim Hall, I mean, they would almost at times peer out the nose of the plane, see where the missile was, because they wanted to visually track it, not, you know, he's a short interview for Joe, but one of the things that what they did with the GB4s in Europe is that when they dropped the plane, the B-17 flew in the opposite direction, away from the bomb, so that they would get away from the blast, which means that you only were sighting it by television. You were not sighting it visually.
Right.
So it, you know, and it depended on that technology to be reliable, and it's you know, wasn't.
Enlightening.
Something else we didn't know.
Thank you, yeah.
All right, thank you for coming.